Good.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education workshop meeting. Here's the sound behind me. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. The time is now 7:02. With me this evening in person, we have Howard White, Ashley Goyas, Janine Randolph, Sarah Bakey, Sherry McCready Pritchett, Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, Jasmine Pressey, and Colin Hostin is on his way. He should be here momentarily. And with that, if we could please stand for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So today we have the mid-year superintendent's goal updates. I have Dr. Alexandra Estrella with me for cabinet and multiple department heads and staff. And with that, Dr. Estrella.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to discuss the mid-year goals, goal review, and to provide the board with an update in terms of where we are, how much progress we've made, and for work ahead. Before I begin, I just want to take a moment to allow the team that's in the room to introduce themselves and the roles that they play. I know we have a number of team members besides the cabinet that are here this evening. So if you could just say your name and your role, please.
I guess I'm on the left. I'm Alden Burnham. I'm the Director of Educational Data Strategy.
I'm Danny Brown. I'm the Ed Admin for School Support and Improvement.
I'm Kimberly Erickson, and I'm a data analyst.
I'm Kristen Schmitz, Director of School Improvement.
There's a whole bunch of people that are going to introduce.
I'm all.
Yep.
Ryan Harrell, Director of Safety and Security.
And more coming.
You can work with them.
Hi.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm Carol Wilshire-Toth, Education Administrator for School Counseling and Workforce Development.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Robin Gredinger. I'm a social worker in residence. Thanks for having us.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Frances Size. I'm the Education Administrator for Multilingual Learning.
Good evening. My name is Stacey Bergen. I'm the Ed Admin for Curriculum and Professional Development. Glad to be in partnership with you this evening.
Hi there, I'm Veronica Lenzen. I'm Education Administrator for Specialized Learning and Student Services for grades 6 through age 21.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Deidre McKinnon. I'm Specialized Learning and Admin for grades pre-K through 5.
Thank you. And can the cabinet, Rob, can you start your intro?
Sure. Rob Pennington, Assistant Superintendent of Schools.
Erin Shepard, Executive Director of Leadership Development.
Allison Brady Johnson, Executive Director of Leadership Development.
Moon Dasmani, Chief Financial Officer.
Ralph LZC, Assistant Superintendent of Digital Learning and Innovation.
Sandra Fayoas, Deputy Superintendent, and one final member.
Nick Dewitt, Director of Marketing and Communications.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. I asked the team to introduce themselves, not because you as a board member don't know who these members of the team are, but I think the public to have awareness of who's in the room and who will be presenting throughout the scope of the evening. Like we've done in the past, we're going to immerse ourselves in triads that will allow you to have not only an overall presentation of where we are with our goals, but also have a deep dive in having questions and a Q&A process that allows you as a board member to gain a deeper understanding of where the work is and how we're moving the work forward. I have to say that there's a lot to celebrate. The team has done an exceptional job. One, of implementing the pursuit of the graduate this year in year one, with our focus around critical thinking and making sure that it's been we have a seamless process in the implementation of this work. Kimberly, who introduced herself earlier, has been instrumental alongside Sandra Fayolis in doing this work. It's been quite a fast-paced year in terms of the implementation of the work, but thanks to our partnership with Digital Promise and all of the different districts across the country that have done this work prior to us, it has placed us at the top of the game when it comes to determining what we need to do for our district, what we need to do differently, because we learned from other districts what were some challenges that they faced along the way that allowed us to have a smoother path forward. We will also kind of give you kind of a little glimpse into what we have in store for 25-26, where we will be implementing the effective communicator indicator as our next tier of integration into the work that we're doing with the Portrait of the Graduate. And throughout the scope of the next few months, we will talk about the work ahead in the implementation of this work and how we're planning for this work alongside our school leaders and the community at large, so that we have a successful implementation process coming this upcoming August. Coupled with that, there's a lot of projects that are on their way around facilities, and as you know, the Norwalk High School project is moving progressively smoothly and forward. Our Sono School is on schedule as well, and we're excited to have our students in the building at the start of the upcoming academic school year. I know that the board had an opportunity, I think most of the board had an opportunity to visit the site and was able to see the great progress that has been made, and in some cases had the opportunity to envision what the space will be like in a few months. So we're very excited about these projects as well as other projects that are taking place in the field of facilities. With digital learning, you will hear from Ralph a lot of the work that has been occurring, but I think most importantly, our forward-thinking approach around AI and how we are embedding that work as we continue to build our Portrait of a Graduate into the work that we're doing in terms of implementing the different competencies, but also learning from our peers in the field and making sure that we have an open mind as to how we can use AI as a resource, but also to use it in informed ways to enhance teaching and learning in the classroom to well equip our students for the future ahead. And in terms of finance and HR, I think Lunda has been an integral component of my superintendent report for the past few months. As we've worked our way through the budget cycle, I have to commend that Lunda and his team for the outstanding work that they have done in making sure that we have a transparent budget process, but most importantly, that the board had all of the tools and resources necessary to make an informed decision. And as you know, for 2 consecutive years, we have been award winners in terms of our budget book and the work that has happened throughout the budget process. So kudos to Mr. Asmani and his team. Rob's team, alongside the leadership team, have been instrumental in building the literacy vision for the district, working a lot alongside our school leaders, our coaches, our teachers, and other personnel, and having a forward approach and thinking about how we are continuing to enhance and think about literacy across the district. As you know, literacy impacts all content areas, and we want to make sure that we have a clear path forward in terms of that work. So they've been doing a really great job around designing this work. And the leadership team has been working alongside Rob in this work, as well as supporting principals in their day-to-day endeavors but also being instrumental in working with Mr. Asmani through the budget process and supporting principals through the school-based budgeting process. So they'll speak not only about the leadership competencies that they've been working on with principals, but also the work that they've been doing alongside Mr. Asmani. And going back to Sandra and the work, the phenomenal work, not only that she does around facilities and safety and security, but also she's taken the task, as you know, we eliminated one of our cabinet positions when Dr. McBride left, and she took up an entire portfolio in addition to the portfolio that she was already overseeing. And she has been instrumental in further refining not only the work around the portrait of a graduate, but also working with the data and analytics team and making sure that the nucleus of the organization is strong and continues to develop systems to effectively monitor progress and efficiencies across the organization. And Kristen is here, who has been instrumental, as well as Alden, in really shaping the work and working one-on-one with principals and teams of teachers and other staff to support the system and continuing to strengthen how we monitor student progress and ensure that the decisions that we're making as an organization are informed by data. So that kind of gives you kind of an overarching scope of some of the great work that this team will speak in greater depth throughout the scope of this evening with you. I just want to provide you just the frame of today. Can you just move to going? Just like provide you an overview again of how we have the fish bowls. So we're gonna spend 45 minutes in each group, 30 minutes of which the team will be presenting an update to you of where we are with the work, 15 minutes of Q&A only for the board. The Q&A, if we have members of the public, they can sit in the perimeter to listen in. But this is an opportunity for you as board members to have a deep understanding of where we are, because pretty soon we will be providing final updates in terms of how we're closing out these goals, but most importantly, also thinking about building the goals for the 25-26 academic school year. So tonight, I hope you have the opportunity not only to have an in-depth understanding of where we are and how much progress we made, but it also hopefully opens up a lens for you to start thinking about what are some of the things that we need to continue to build and further develop for the 25-26 academic school year as we close out this year. Understanding that, as you know, we are in the process of hopefully soon concluding a really challenging budget process that will create inevitable reductions that will have an impact systematically. So as we get more clarity in terms of what the overarching impact will be once the BET provides us with a final number, we will be able to couple what you learn from this and also what we learn from our schools through the school-based budgeting process, so that you can make an informed decision in June as to how we need to move forward in terms of our goals, and if any modifications need to be made, what should they be? Because I know that there will be implications as a result of the significant reductions that we have to make across the system. And we want to make sure, as I've constantly spoken to the finance team, that the instructional core is maintained whole as much as we possibly can. And in doing so, we want to make sure that the strategic priorities that the board has set through strategic plan continue to progressively move forward. With that, I'll turn it over to any questions the board may have before we transition into our fishbowl. So if you could click to the next. So we have 3 stations. The first station is going to be located in the room at the end. And that's going to be led by Mr. Pennington, and the instructional team. So we're gonna have Diana, Mary Ellen, and Janine join that group. Station 2 is going to be led by Sandra and Ralph. And that would be Kara, Colin, and Jasmine. You guys are starting in here. And then Station 3 is Lunda and the leadership team, Marianne and Allison. They will be outside. And that will be Howard, Sherry, and Ashley. So if we could please transition to those groups and we will get started. Oh, before we transition, I'm so sorry. You have both the executive summary of the mid-year, but you also have a review book. It's similar to the review book that we created for you at the end of the year last year. It has a description of the metric, the description of the goals, and how they are aligned to the strategic plan. But you also have the ability to take notes, and they are all organized by station number to allow easy access to the different goals as you are engaging in discussions. Okay, so that just facilitates your ability to take notes.
Thank you.
So just don't forget your documents as you transition.
Hi there, how's it going? See you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, see you.
Changing classes.
Yeah, right, yeah. These are the last ones.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm
Thank
setting
you
up,
so
I'm
much.
setting.
Colin's online, right, which is.
Oh, Colin.
Yes.
Do you want me to try? Oh, sorry.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So we're excited to kind of present tonight. We wanted to just kind of start off very quickly before we get into our specific goals to just remind you as well. At the end of the year, we set certain metrics that we were going to be measuring by, and we wanted to review those real quickly. We won't go into any detail specifically within them, but one of them was really focused around graduation rate. We were also focusing on chronic absenteeism this year. Looking at from the academic side, looking at our DIBEL scores. As well as a growth metric of using our NWEA scores, which you've heard about a lot with Mr. Pennington's team. Another metric that you'll hear a little bit more about from the team in just a moment is our 9th grade on trackness and making sure that we keep our kids prepared and ready for graduation. And we're also using, we talked earlier this year about our learning walks that we do within the schools to be able to kind of just assess what's going on, but also get a good feel of what's happening within the district. And you'll hear more about that tonight too, as well, that metric. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leos.
Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Estrella. Just always so excited to share the progress that we've made so far. Our goal number 2 is actually a facilities related goal. We share it with business and operations, so you'll see it again when Mr. Asmani presents his piece. But essentially, the goal is to always to continue to enhance the quality of our school environment. And more specifically, we had pointed to 2 areas that we wanted to focus on. One is to make sure that in partnership with the city, we developed a long-term facilities plan to guide the funding and to guide our requests for future funding. This involves more the capital requests. And within that, we did want to say that we've met a couple of times with Dr. Estrella, the mayor, Senator Duff, and various other city officials and city staff and our own staff to discuss what that plan will be. And we have decided that the completion of the Norwalk High P-TECH project actually has to occur because of the impact of fields. Before that, we can submit another application. There has been a lot of stated commitment from the city as far as what the next project will be and the application for that project. But we have been tied to the number of available fields in the city and the impact that that has had on our sports programs. And so then because we thought that initially we were going to have more fields being built, that we thought that we might be able to speed that up. But it does look like the conversation around the fields is something that has been a hindrance in terms of the next school application process. But the commitment has been there. The other commitment that we've been able to get is that we've been able to actually have the capital requests initially funded from the city that would allow us to create some remediation to some of these facilities that are these high need facilities. And you will see that in terms of what the mayor's office has approved for our capital requests. I will point to two of them that have been really instrumental or will be really instrumental is the roof at West Rocks, the paving at West Rocks, the air conditioning at Wolf Pit, and also the asbestos abatement at Wolf Pit. All of those are almost totaling $3 million in just capital funds that have been allotted to the schools in addition to other funding. But those are particularly to get us through a space where the schools can maintain their quality until we're ready to submit the next application. Does that make sense in terms of that goal? Okay. The other piece that
sorry, Sandra, if I can, I'm just interrupting just to say I'm switching to my car and I'm heading to you in a few minutes. So sorry, see you soon.
Okay, see you soon. Okay. And the other obviously is the HVAC improvements. We have been able to be awarded a 12-month extension, which allows us the appropriate time to actually get all of these projects done. We were awarded the 6 grants, but obviously that with the 6 grants, we have to actually be able to get them done in enough time. But it was nice to actually have until December of 2026 to be able to get those up and running. And there's a lot of work that's going to take place summer of 2025 as far as that goes. That in addition to the capital the capital funds that have been granted for Wolf Pit air conditioning, that actually will give us now a full fleet of schools that will have the HVAC needs for those schools to be cooled sufficiently, and also for just their air quality will be better because of all of those investments from the city and from the state. And then the other piece that I wanted to highlight is that we were able to meet the deadline for the IAQ, that's the indoor air quality. It's a mandate that came from the state. We had until December 2024 to fulfill certain needs. One is the checklist for each school for the IAQ, which you can actually find online at each school's FAQ page, as long and within our departments. And each school has built an IAQ team. And the next phase of that is to actually get those teams trained. But we've been able to meet those, and that was a huge lift for the team. Some additional accomplishments that you may not hear about, but that we celebrate often, or we want to celebrate more often, are the openings of our school-based health centers, with this one being the last one. Kendall is actually the next school-based health center that we anticipate opening over the summertime. We're also piloting a dental care program at Jefferson Elementary that has been really well received, and hopefully we'll get that partnership off and running with NCHC. Norwalk Community Health Center has been an instrumental partner for us. We just approved the joint usage agreement with the city, which was something that we had been working on for quite some time since the efficiency study. And so far, Norwalk High School and the Norwalk High School P-TECH and South Norwalk is on schedule. And we don't anticipate anything, but obviously we're still early, especially in the Norwalk High School P-TECH project. It's very early for me to say that we we don't have anything that might be looming. But for the South Norwalk project, what we would need is the final equipment to be delivered in April for us to tell us that we're in good shape, and then it's all of the furniture. And so then I'll keep you posted on that, but so far there hasn't been anything worth reporting. Any questions regarding the facilities goals or any of the facilities projects? Of
I have one
course.
question.
Sure.
So can you just explain a little bit more what you were talking about with the sports fields?
Yes. So the sports fields, because Norwalk High School, Norwalk P-TECH project brought the fields offline.
Right.
We ended up having to use the sports fields for the high school programs. And it ended up actually bumping what we call the third party sports into a different time slot. So the fields that we would use are like West Rocks. We use it right now for the high school sports teams. If we were to do another school construction and take more fields, like Fox Run is another field that we brought on that we didn't typically use. So if we do another project, what it'll do is it'll actually add more stress to all of the programs that we want to honor, that they're well attended. And so then it would add a stress on the system, the programs through Parks and Recreation, third party programs, and also then our own sports programs.
So what is the remedy here, or what are we?
The remedy is actually to actually wait until the Norwalk High School fields are complete.
To
2028.
infringe on any other
To then
construction.
Correct.
And how does that play into our 5-year plan with other schools? Is that cause any problems or?
I mean, in
delays?
terms of delays with other school projects, I think that's something that we would have to talk to the committee about when we come back. But that has been the biggest piece to sort of the biggest hurdle has been the fields. But that's something that maybe during facilities committee, we could bring up to Alan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good question. There are no further questions on the fields. I'm going to turn it over.
Great. And so I'm just going to talk for a few minutes around our goal 5, and then I know that your team will be taking over and stuff with the second part of it. But so if you remember, goal 5 really focuses around innovation, around programming, and upgrades that we're making to everything that we do. So equity falls under this, as well as our work with our digital learning. So this year, earlier this year, we talked about 3 specific goals that I would be, focused on. One is around digital learning and professional development. I'll give you some updates in that in a moment. Secondly, we were going to talk a little bit more about our Twilight and virtual programs, Future Ready, and the successes that we've had there. And then we also have a goal that's a combined goal, actually, with curriculum, which is looking at, it's actually combined goal across every area, including Kimberly, to talk more about the culture of a graduate, but how do we actually support that through digital learning and the development of critical thinking skills, and how do we actually integrate tools like, as Dr. Estrella mentioned earlier, AI into this, and what have we been doing as a district? So our first area that I wanted to talk about tonight was really just talking about digital learning in general. Some of the things that we've actually been really focused on this year, you're going to hear more and more often about AI and our support for our teachers. We've actually been building out professional development plans. So we've looked at each one of our sectors to make sure that we're kind of covering professional development for all people within the district. So we've done work with the board by introducing these small triads and teaching you a little bit more about what we're actually focused on, so that it supports you. We've been doing work with the cabinet, bringing in consultants. Actually just recently, we just talked to OpenAI the other day to learn more about what's going on specifically. And OpenAI is a company that owns ChatGPT. We're doing work at the building leader level. So the next good example of that will be the next building, the next principals meeting will be really focused around the coaches and our central office administration working with building leaders in 4 different stations to learn how AI can actually enhance the work that they do in a variety of areas, instructionally as well as operationally. We've been doing a lot of work with teachers and actually doing training with teachers. And we're also focused on what we consider our non-certified staff. So tomorrow is a good example of this. Tomorrow, the coaches will actually be running trainings in central office on teaching staff how to prompt, and then also how to do image creation as their first steps into stepping into understanding how to use these AI tools. So we've developed a comprehensive plan, and we're really making sure that we're kind of fleshing that out a little bit more as the year goes on into next year. We've also made sure to really try to look at what our tools are that we're using. And, we've talked about this. There's money that we have funded right now for AI resources that we will need for next year, making sure that we're actually spending that money efficiently and looking at what are the proper tools to be used. And in order to do that, people need to understand what those tools do. So spending the time to actually do the professional development, making sure that people are prepared is something that we're actually spending a lot of time to make sure that we're thoughtful in how we actually then start implementing different tools within the district to support teachers, the instructional practice, as well as operations. And as of today, we just launched a new digital learning website. So we're starting to populate information on there. The coaches are actually working on a bi-weekly blog that'll be posted. I think it's going to be the blog will actually start next week, talking about what they're doing with AI. So if you go onto our site, you can actually go under academics and you now see digital learning coaches. There'll be resources that are there for them, as well as for teachers. It allows them to go on and actually click into it and sign in to be able to get a coach to come out to them. So they can actually basically calendar and look at their own calendars and stuff and find the time to actually have a coach work with them one-on-one if they need it in the classroom. So we've made great strides in actually developing a system that'll help support this work in AI this year. Some of the things that we still need to do for this year, we talked earlier in the year, and we're trying to schedule right now. We do have some training that we'd like to do around just in general good practice around digital citizenship for our adults. And this really focuses on phishing software. So having a short tutorial around how they can actually, understand more about phishing software and keep themselves safe online in the workplace as well as at home is something we're looking at doing. And we also just want to continue just building out a professional learning plan. Working with Kimberly, we've actually sent out a survey to staff to be able to kind of get an idea of what they're using, how they're using it, so that we can then spend the time over the summer to make sure that going into next year, we actually have a really good, robust opportunities for everybody that's, focused around using AI. A quick update on Twilight. Last month we had our second annual mid-year graduation with 11 graduates. I'm excited to say that, the estimation right now is that we have 18 scholars set to graduate in June. We actually have a couple right on the cusp so I think that number is going to be a little higher. If not, it will happen over the summer. So we're very, very excited about that. And one of the things that I think we've seen is one of those areas that's made this really, really successful this year is the integration of, as you're hearing more about project-based learning and portfolio-based assessments, as well as looking at a semester model. Sometimes, with students that may not work as easily in a traditional environment, it can sometimes be just the load of having 8 courses to take at one time instead of 4. It's more like a college model. So that's actually how Twilight and Virtual is structured right now. And we're seeing great success with that too, with our students and stuff. It also allows for, let's say you have a student that is maybe 1 credit short, and we find out at the mid-year of the senior year, and we need to be able to do whatever we can to get them on board. We then have the opportunity, as long as we teach the courses in Twilight, to enroll them for that 1 course after school, but yet it's that last semester, so they can reach that finish line and be successful and stuff. So we've seen that become very, very successful for us too. Our goals for next year is, we are looking at, due to, as we're all talking about budget, restructuring and what is the program going to look like. It will be in place. We're making sure that it moves forward. We have seen our virtual numbers drop a little bit in the enrollment. So we're looking at how that's going to look. But all those students will be serviced, and there'll be a virtual element to Twilight as we move forward in this coming year. Our Twilight teachers, our full-time Twilight teachers will actually be also joining in on the project-based learning opportunities that you're hearing about at P-TECH, Bonus, and Kendall as well. So they're trained as well in PBL Works to be able to implement that within their structure. And then finally, really just talking a little bit more, now you'll hear more about this later, is the integration of AI and other tools into our critical thinking skills integration. So once again, Kimberly will be talking more about this in general, but how we've aligned this to our portrait of a graduate, making sure that there's a definite through line in all the work that we do. Our coaches have been actually working too on curriculum writing. So this summer, we rewrote our social studies curriculum that was more inquiry-based. Coaches, you actually saw an example of this where they developed a chatbot that allows them to be able to, for teachers to be able to kind of query what they want to do with those critical thinking skills and be able to then get information that's based on our curriculum. So we're continuing to do that type of work. We've created a number of AI resources. Once again, I won't talk too much about that because you've actually seen them over the last couple of board meetings. And really, we've been really focused around making sure we get our digital coaches in front of educators to be able to help support them a little more. The digital website is one example of how they've been able to do that, but they're booked pretty solid. It's they're hard to get a hold of because they're definitely in demand, and they love working with teachers in the classroom. So, and really our goals for next year is to continue working on these resources and seeing how do we kind of take, with the constraints that we have in this coming year, how do we continue the work to, move forward? Any questions at all on digital learning or?
I have one, the digital learning coaches. So is the teachers have to set up an appointment, or is it just like, hey, I'm teaching and I need help with this? Is there some, like, how do they get in touch with the coaches or?
So the coaches, basically we'll take the elementary school coaches, that's a little bit easier to kind of map out. All the middle and high schools do have their own coach within the group. So it's a little bit easier to schedule and they stay there. But for the elementary schools, they cover a number of schools on their own it's kind of their catchment area. The teachers know to be able to go and sign up, so they can go online. They can just click into their calendar and see when they're free. They actually sign up and they fill out a quick form that says, I'm working on this lesson. I need support in this.
Okay.
So they can come out and do that. They also do workshops like, so if you wanted to even just learn about your ViewSonic board, or you wanted to do that at a staff meeting, administrators sign them up to come in as well too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I have a question about Twilight and virtual programs. So you mentioned that the number of virtual students has dropped. And I know the graduation rates are up. So are those kids like going in person? Are they shifting over to Twilight? And we're not losing those kids, right?
No. So it's not that we're losing them. They're just not enrolling in the first place. And a lot of them are enrolling in Twilight. We're realizing that they like the small environment.
Right.
They like the semester-based model. In many cases, a lot of the kids originally that were going into this, coming out of COVID, it was still a transition. And as we're bringing students back in, we're actually seeing that those numbers are dwindling. We did have a number of students that were parents as well. But now we're trying to come up with better opportunities as well for them, where can we actually find ways of actually supporting them through infant care so that they can actually focus even a little bit more. But it's a smaller learning environment. So we're not like our numbers overarchingly are basically the same. It's just that Twilight is bigger at this point and virtual has gotten a little bit smaller and stuff. So, but this will happen from year to year. And the goal of the Future Ready program is meet our kids where they're at when at that point. So it may change in 26, 27, it may change again. That the idea is, let's make sure we keep
Yeah,
our,
so it's
we do.
not, the goal is not like get everybody in person. We know that that's not realistic.
It's to support the kids wherever they're at.
Okay. All right, great, yeah.
And how big are the classrooms, the Twilight classrooms?
Right now, I believe we have 65 enrolled. I'd have to go back and check what the numbers are at the moment, but we're actually at capacity at the moment, yeah. So, yeah, we're pretty packed. Oh, sorry, any additional comments?
Yeah,
So
I was like,
just a couple things too that we've worked on. So with policies, we've this year so far, we've updated 9 policies. We put new policies in place. We're still over the summer, we'll actually be putting a fundraising regulation into place. And we're currently working on a cell phone policy. Tomorrow night, we'll actually, in partnership with Norwalk, we're gonna have a little panel discussion with students and Margaret Watt to talk about social media and cell phone use as part of that process. But the students that are involved, as well as the student council, have all been supporting on helping to build what that policy should look like. So I'm excited about that a lot. Our AI work, I think I've covered all of these already. And one thing that we've done in partnership with operations is, if you remember out of the efficiency study, we started talking about documentation a lot around the district. And part of it was an operations manual. So the new policies now, we've developed an operations manual that will be transferring over to the building level principals that helps them be able to use the policies and understand that the policy is here and how does that really affect you at the building. So we've been able, we'll be updating that on a yearly basis too. But yeah, it took a little bit longer than we thought. It's a 200-page document.
We don't use such agreement, so
Yes, yeah,
it take a long time.
Yeah, but like I said, we're excited to be launching that and stuff with the principals in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the team to come join me, if that's okay, if you guys would pull in some chairs. And Dr. Estrella, would you do a time check for me?
Yes, you have 5 minutes for Q&A.
Before Q&A, okay, but can we steal some, I was gonna say, can we steal some Q&A time just because of, because I think you can ask throughout if that's okay. I'm going to let Dr. Erickson go forward.
All right, well, thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Estrella, for the opportunity to be here tonight and to share with you a little bit about the Portrait of a Graduate and the progress that we've made this year. And so it's exciting that this year then we launched the Portrait of a Graduate with a focus on the critical thinker competency. As Ralph mentioned, then our rollout was really thinking about like this integration with what's already happening within the district, specifically in terms of like the teaching and learning opportunities. So spotlighting these opportunities within curriculum, as well as thinking about our district learning walks. And how are we supporting our teachers in facilitating these critical thinking learning opportunities? And then finally with our students, so what does it look like for students to be engaged in critical thinking? And so we've had the opportunity after launching to reflect on this rollout through feedback cycles. So in partnership with Digital Promise, then this fall in November through December, then we ran a survey that had over 900 responses from NPS staff and families, as well as ran focus groups with NPS staff members, so building leaders, coaches, educators, as well as focus groups with students in elementary, middle, and high school to better understand how the Portrait of a Graduate is really landing within the system itself. And through those feedback cycles, then we were able to come back and reflect on the areas of strength and also areas of potential gaps or areas that we could continue to iterate on. And through that feedback cycle, then that has helped us in planning for the phase 2 of the Portrait of a Graduate, in which we will be deepening our critical thinking work through the effective communicator competency. And then this emphasis on AI literacy practices that Ralph mentioned is that how are we leveraging AI in our teaching practices to better support our students as they prepare for this ever evolving world? And also how are we supporting our students in developing their AI literacy and understanding how to use AI in responsible and ethical ways. And some of the work that we've done through the board workshops with AI. And then the next piece that I'd like to focus in on is we've been learning how to assess critical thinking assessing is a really tricky, and this is an area when speaking with districts across the US, this is like the nugget that continually gets stuck. Is like, how do we move this from a poster to practice? And part of that practice work is knowing like, what is the impact of this? And so we've been really thoughtful and intentional from the beginning of making sure that how we're assessing the portrait of a graduate should be really aligned with the measures that already exist within the district. And so it's really aligning and thinking about like our student achievement, the teaching practices to the district learning walks, and then the student perspective piece. Because ultimately we want our students to be taking ownership over their process or progress in developing the portrait of a graduate skills. And so we've developed an internal assessment cohort that launched in February. And this is in partnership with Digital Promise, in which we brought teachers from across the district in different subjects and grade levels together to think through how we support students in reflecting on their critical thinking. And that will provide these insights not only to the student, but also to the teacher to better support them in developing this critical thinking. So that's part of the work that's started that we're really excited about and gleaning these student perspectives in. And then finally, we are continuing this professional development through central office, as well as with our building leaders, continuing through the organization as we continue this portrait of graduate work, and really making sure that there's this coherence and that it's really aligning what's already the work that's happening within the district to this greater North Star. Any questions about the portrait of a graduate? I know that was a lot.
I feel like it's kind of a recap of.
Yes,
We've been pretty engaged in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift it over and allow Kristen to talk to us about the work.
Thank you. Thank you, board, and thank you, Dr. Estrella. The work that I'm going to talk about tonight, we have talked about parts of it in the past. So you may recall that a couple of years ago, we established grade 9 on-track teams at all 4 of our high schools. And so those are teams of educators that get together regularly to discuss students, to figure out who might need additional support, and to ensure that all of our students finish grade 9 on track. And that work has continued over the last couple of years. We know that's actually related to one of our goals is also around grade 9 on track. Last year, we also established post-secondary teams at all 4 of the high schools as well. And those teams focus on ensuring that all students graduate with a post-secondary plan and have taken the necessary steps to execute on that plan. And so this year, that work has really been focused on our school teams coming up with change ideas, looking at the data, noticing where there was room for improvement, coming up with a change idea, and then seeing the impact of that change idea. And so that work has led us to increase our grade 9 on track rates this year. And also one of the great developments of post-secondary was a focus on first generation students who are, would be the first in their families to attend post-secondary, either 2-year or 4-year, and where we're seeing college application and FAFSA completion are on par with non-first generation students. And that's a gap that used to exist. So those are 2 strong pieces of impact that we've had out of that work. What you might notice is that the work is grade 9 and then that the work is post-secondary, and that we haven't yet kind of connected grade 9 to post-secondary. And so we are partnering, again, most of this work is through our partnership with Connecticut Rise Network. They are currently developing a new tool for us, which we're calling On Pace to Graduation. So we would not confuse it with On Track in grade 9 to give it a little bit of a different language that will help us to really see from a district level all the way down to the school level, to a student group level, and even to an individual student, where we are in relation to credit requirements by year, so that we can really begin to intervene in terms of who is on pace towards graduation and who is not by cohort. And then also at the individual student profile view to hopefully also facilitate, programming, helping counselors with their workload, getting a quick snapshot, really visual of here's where each student is in their journey towards high school.
So you are very focused on the data aspect here, the telling of the story of the grade 9 on track for
Yes.
graduation. Are you collaborating with Carol Wilshire Toth?
Sure,
Who
yes.
I know like her kind of focus is getting kids, kind of future ready and helping
Absolutely.
like that post-grad planning.
Yes, so she and I collaborate frequently, and then also with Connecticut Rise Network, who also does some coaching within the schools in terms of the various teams and helping them to take the next steps to intervene for students. So it is very much.
Carol joins us often just because of the work also around absenteeism and it just, so it's off, and Robin. So there's a lot of a lot of crossover, especially with the way that the goals were formulated this year.
It's great though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cross-pollinating and.
Yes, and that's the way that it actually will start to become part of the way that the system works. I'm gonna shift this to talk about impact because we've had a great emphasis on trying to measure the impact of some of our strategies. And Alvin, do you want to talk about our project?
Absolutely.
Your project?
So I do want to be conscious of time, but thank you for the time. I'm excited to talk about program evaluation. I came on as a data analyst, and in my new role, one of the things that I'm really interested in doing in the district is evaluating programs systematically, quantitatively, and when possible, try to help that inform decision making. It's a really important question. It's very, very difficult to do in education. There's a lot of questions. What does this data mean? What's the proper data to measure this? Is the change in that metric because of what I did in this program? These are all questions that hopefully you've been asking all along, but what I'm trying to do is answer them really strategically. So what we're doing here is a pilot kind of example of like what program evaluation looks like in a school district. So you might know about the My Brother's Keeper and My Sister's Keeper programs, the initiatives that we had to kind of support our Black and Hispanic students in the district around many different things. That was kind of the first question is when I sat down with LaShante and Q, what exactly are you trying to optimize here? Nobody really had thought, there's many different things that they had done, but nobody had asked that question, like, what are you trying to optimize? How can we measure it? How can we show the impact of that? And so what we did collectively, I met with a research professor that works around Black identity development, specifically around school achievement. And then I applied some quantitative analysis, bringing in the panorama results for students that are in this program, like fairly compared to other students that are not in this program, like kind of matching what kinds of students are doing MBK versus students that are not. You can't just compare them to everyone, right? So you have to really be strategic when doing these quantitative analyses. And what I'm putting together is basically a report that says, this is how this program works. And this is how we know that it works. And so another piece that's attached to the quantitative piece is focus group interviews, where we met with students, asked them about their experience in MBK and figured out what was driving things like school belonging and engagement that we were seeing results in on the panorama survey. So kind of mixing methods here, but ultimately trying to answer these questions like, is this program working? And the goal is really, that's just one example, but the goal is to expand that kind of program evaluation across the district to our many different initiatives that we're curious about.
The question being is, how do we know that our equity strategies and our efforts around equity are actually impacting students and their outcomes? Do you want to talk about our dashboards?
Yes, so the other thing, I started doing this dashboard where you might know me as the dashboard guy. And I built these dashboards for our school principals to do many different things. And this was a real collaborative effort. I had to sit down with principals one-on-one and ask them like, what is it that you're, similar to what we did with the program evaluation, what are you trying to measure? What are you trying to understand? What do you need to know about your school? What are the functional aspects that would help you evaluate if things are going well at a systems level in your school? And recently what we've been doing is adjusting these visualizations to make them as actionable as possible. So a lot of principals brought up things like, I want to be able to compare my assessment. We got 7 different assessments we're doing. I want to be able to see my students and compare whether this assessment aligns with this one or if it's correlated with this one or how it predicts this one. So we built some visualizations that do that kind of work. A lot of principals brought up monitoring. We talk a lot about chronic absenteeism, but it was difficult to monitor our chronic absenteeism because we were comparing December to last June. Like we didn't have a way to compare December to December before we started using time intelligence in our data dashboard design. So that was another thing that we incorporated. We did the same thing with our suspension data. So there were many different things that principals brought up, but the key is that like that kind of collaborative design where I worked with them to understand what they were trying to do and then brought some data science principles to that allowed us to make something that the key outcome here is that they're using this thing. There's many people that can come in and build you a dashboard. Nobody uses them really is the key takeaway. And that's one thing that we've been really proud of, that we're showing like principals are logging into this thing, they're clicking around in it, they're experiencing it, and that's gonna ultimately drive the impact that we see at the student level. So I can talk more about that.
Yeah, we could talk about this for hours, but Dr. Estrella said we have 3 minutes. Or so. Yes.
I know, I think it's right again, but yeah, we did want to show you this too. So this is the last piece. We know that there was this ask for kind of public facing. We built these dashboards for principals. Where's my dashboard, right? So this is what we set up for that. So this QR code is live. You can scan it and take a look. You can scan it
at some point.
Yeah, I know we only have 3 minutes, but what we did is we basically looked at some of these high level systems metrics that we know you're curious about. Chronic absenteeism, like I just talked about. Our school suspension data, which is another one that factors into our state accountability, and enrollment counts. How are enrollments changing? Are there more multilingual learners year over year? Those kinds of things. And we put together some very simple comparisons just to be able to monitor it year over year. But this public facing dashboard does update nightly, and you'll be able to track that if you want. You can log in. So that QR code is there. That's an example of what it looks like. But
yes, and this was a large collaboration with Nick Dua and our absolutely. Well, Nick helped to build it, so I think that I wanted to make sure that we point out that we are tapping in the expert also in terms of the public facing aspect of this work.
Right.
And then finally, we just will always want to make sure that we remember that we have these technical approaches, but we also have these other softer approaches. Our work with Paul Forbes has been already so well received and instrumental. He just had another series of with our equity leads and our school principals, and it really is for us to be able to meet the principals, meet the school leaders, and meet the staff where they're at, and talk about just how we bridging relationships. So our equity work is not, it's about us as a community bringing ourselves into our work and then creating empathy for who it is that we work with and the children that we serve. And Paul has been able to achieve that with his work on so many different levels, and we have some sort of testimonies about that you can learn more about. We continue to partner with Dr. Farkas and the Rutgers team. They do walkthrough data for us still. It's been really that institutional view of how we are treating all students and how all students are progressing within our community is still very critical to our work. So we've been able to actually maximize that partnership by having them go into the different schools. And our latest partner has been our Grading for Equity group. We do have a posting out there for 16 teachers to join. And if we don't have enough traction for this spring, we can talk about, is there summer work opportunities or opportunities for the fall? But we do want this work to actually be vetted through our teachers and have it really live within where the rubber meets the road, where the teachers are. And so that's something that we've been pretty proud of in terms of pulling that off in collaboration with our teachers union. And just some additional things to brag about. We do have equity leads at each school. Each school has an equity team. We've successfully conducted over 9 professional development sessions with an equity focus and countless others. I couldn't even quantify it at the school level. We are trying to actually get a survey so that we can present that to you at the end of the year. West Rocks is a great example to point to where we did some things that technically just show them their data had them had access to data, but then they coupled that with an SEL purpose and a really being strategic with their ruler program. They continue to see a drop in their student behavior incidences. 46% is no small feat for a school with that demographic, just because we know that West Rocks has a large high needs population. And then overall, we've had about a 16.4% reduction today. It was, I think, a little bit lower than that in incidents amongst Black students, and a 19% reduction in incidents among students receiving specialized services. Those were the subgroups that were overly represented in our data. So we always keep our mind on them. And our chronic absenteeism, believe it or not, still is hanging in there on par with the state. And we just hope to continue to make progress with that. But, you know, we meet very regularly and try to think of innovative ways and fresh ways to partner with the schools around that work. And with that, the bell tolls, which means we're on time, but well, I think we're open to any questions. If you have some questions,
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great work.
Yeah.
All of it.
We've been really excited.
Yeah, I mean, you've like met all your goals and
It's exciting.
exceeded them, so it's exciting.
It's I don't know, this team has been, it's been a great collaboration.
Yeah.
And also just like because of everybody that's involved, like, cause it's not just us, it's the curriculum team, you'll
Right.
hear it. It's our digital learning, it's the communications team. So I think that just sort of like cross departmentalization has really been, this team pollinates with everybody, and it's the data team, so it makes sense.
Right. It's all about the data.
It's all about the data.
Yeah, right? You probably love hearing that.
Yeah.
I do love hearing that.
And I agree.
It tells the story.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
you.
I think another team is going to be transitioning in.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So Sandra, you're going into the room?
Sure, whoever.
Who's coming in here, station what?
The section will come in.
Oh, okay, I see.
We get them set up before I can get in between.
The work. Focus.
We are station. Okay, so you're all set. Just okay. Click here. Over here.
Guys, whenever you're ready to start the clock.
Speaking
Speaking I am.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I think I'll be longer, right? Did you?
I think this one,
8:30?
Yeah.
7.
yeah, stay for like the
Okay.
first hour or something.
Okay.
Figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing both.
Okay, I'll do both.
Hello.
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 So we are station free at your service. We begin on, the presentation itself begins on page 48. Sorry, on page 45. Yeah.
Got it.
All right, so I'm going to speak on goal number 3, which is human resources, finance, business operations to streamline our processes within our respective departments. And today I'll focus on HR and finance. So within HR, we had 3 major goals. The first one was obviously Title IX, making sure that not only the district is compliant with the federal requirements that foster a safe and supportive environment to reduce potential for litigation, but we also wanted to make sure that we were current. As you recall, in 2021, when President Biden took office, he had expanded some definitions of protection, specifically to LGBTQ+, and some of those protections. In 2023, there were some additional enhancements to those protections. So the goal here is to make sure that we were current. There has been some rolling back of those protections, but the goal for the HR department was to make sure that our leaders and our staff people within the district understood definition of Title IX and what is involved in making sure that people are protected. The other goal that we had within HR was basically to just improve and work on labor relations. The HR department is kind of the go-between, the interface between unions and the district and staff. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that understanding and that relationship. If you recall, when Louis Bray came over as the HR director, he hired Kimberly, who is now the HR director. Those were positions that didn't exist in that way before. But the goal there was to have somebody that's dedicated to union matters, and Louis Bray came to us with some experience on the labor side. So what we wanted to do there was just to make sure that the HR department had a better understanding of the laws and the labor relations piece of it. As you know, we have a young HR department team because of turnover, so we just wanted to make sure. So that was a goal within HR. And then the final goal was to make sure that we did have the right staffing within the department to make sure that we are able to effectively support our employees at different phases of their employment. When they're applying to get in, when they're here, how do we support them, train them, provide them support that they need while they're in the organization, and as they exit the organization, just working with them in that regard, whether they exit however way they exit, right? Whether it's retirement or transitioning to another role, but HR's role is to kind of be that space for them to do that. So one of the things that the question came about, how is our HR department staffed? So we support about 2,500 employees within the district. The department has 3 generalists. The 3 generalists support our 21, 22 schools, including all of our non-school-based individuals. So on average, each generalist supports 7 or 8 schools or a department. So by saying they support 7 or 8 schools, when you think of an organization of 2,500, this is the go-to person for that. Let's pick a principal or 7 or 8 principals. This is their first point of contact when they get notified that somebody is retiring or resigning. They are responsible for assisting with transitioning that particular individual, with the recruiting process, with advertising for that position. Once a person is identified to be hired, onboarding that particular individual as well. And they also participate in the new hire orientation process. So those 3 individuals are responsible for doing this role for the entire district. The other 2 individuals we have in that department, we have a HRS analyst, human resource systems. So we have a system, our frontline system, which includes how we advertise for position, how we manage positions, how we maintain employee records within the system. So we have 2 individuals that do that work within the HR department. And then we have an individual right now who's kind of like the admin support that provides support for the HR department. So that's basically who works within the HR department. And then we have an assistant director that works within the department. If you recall, when Louis Bray left the organization, we did not fill Louis's position. Those roles were assumed by Kimberly. So that's what kind of did to kind of ensure that the staffing was appropriate for the department. We also had an individual within the department, her name was Christina. She left the organization to go to another organization. We did not fill that position, so her role was absorbed within the department. And most recently, the HR department did ask us if we could provide a labor relations specialist to support the labor relations piece. We did. That position did get approved. We had posted for that position, but given the financial challenges, we have taken down that position, so we are no longer recruiting for that position. This fiscal year, we'll see how we do next year. But that's in essence the makeup of the department. So as far as what did we do in relation to Title IX, we have 2 meetings a month, 1 meeting with all the principals, and the next day we meet with all the assistant principals. They meet for a full day of development. And so this year we had brought in some Title IX experts from the state that come and provide this learning for us, including our Shipman and Goodwin partners. So they came in and they provide this Title IX training at the beginning of the year. As I mentioned, some of the Title IX changes were rolled back, and so we had to update our records as well and our policies to reflect that. But we did do that for achieving Title IX goal. In terms of labor relations, we, again, as I mentioned, we do have our HR director who work closely with our unions on a monthly basis. We have monthly consultations. Most of these, at least with the exception of the 2 unions, the NASA union and the NFT union that meet, their consultation is monthly with the superintendent. All of the other consultations, monthly consultations, are actually handled by the HR director and her team. So they do these on a monthly basis. We do have a process for grievances within the district. There's 4 levels. Level 1 typically starts with the HR department. If it doesn't get resolved there, goes to a level 2, superintendent or their designee. Level 3 comes to the board, and then level 4. We have seen a decrease in the number of level 4s and level 3s that either go to the superintendent or come to the board. And obviously, you know how many you've had to deal with in your time here. They've dropped. And part of that really has to do with some of the work that the HR department does in collaboration with our unions. We get a lot resolved at that level. There's some that actually get resolved at the school level that don't even make it to that level. So there is still work to do, but those are some of our efforts in relation to labor relations. I talked about the staffing challenges we've had and where we are, so I'm not gonna belabor that. But we have been really working hard to make sure that we are not only fully staffed, but we have staff that are knowledgeable and can address our issues and challenges and opportunities within the department. So with respect to some additional accomplishments HR done this year, HR in collaboration with our dynamic and wonderful communication team put together what we call It Takes a Village series. And this was really just a way to engage with our staff members. If you recall, there was a series of Why I Teach video recordings. And so that was done in collaboration just to make that connection between our staff so we know who the staff are and just provide additional engagement. HR has launched an internal newsletter where they just share happenings within the department, within the district. So another way to just engage our staff. I'm going to gravitate to finance. Finance we have a couple of goals. One was obviously to improve the accessibility of the budget document. Again, working with communications, we created a dedicated website for, I think now it's the 3rd year in a row. We do want to increase stakeholder engagement. You'll recall this year, we did have a few more public hearings. We had a public hearing before the budget process even began with some of the changes in the city charter. There were already additional public hearings built in to the organization, but that is our effort to engage different members of the public within this process. The superintendent meets with school parents on a monthly basis before each of these board meetings. We also had a goal of strengthening our financial reporting, making sure that not only are documents accessible, but they are also relatable and readable to somebody that's not necessarily a finance person. We do want to ensure that we are compliant in everything we do. The city each year is audited by an independent external auditor. And our goal is to make sure that through the course of that audit, there aren't any irregularities or findings of misappropriation and misuse. And I'm happy to say that both on the city and on the Board of Ed side, there have not been any material discrepancies that have been found. We get comments for improvement, which we work on, and the next year we move on with those. And also leveraging technology, making sure that we have the tools and the systems that make us work smarter and not necessarily harder. So some of the additional accomplishments this year, we did receive the Meritorious Budget Award for our reporting. We have improved on our strategic planning. We did enhance our capital management process. And I think what I want to highlight is just our ability to partner with other organizations. For example, we partnered with the Norwalk Community Health Center for the school-based health clinics. They could not apply for it on their own. They needed a partner. So we partnered with them and went into that grant application. And that's how we've been able to get these community health clinics funded through that partnership. We also partnered with the Carver Foundation for their after-school programs. There were grants that they couldn't get unless they had a partner. We partnered with them and we were able to secure it with them $1.8 million of additional funding to provide after and preschool for our students. With that, I'm going to toss it over to my colleagues here. Okay, and we can do questions at the end. I'm sure somebody will come to remind us.
So switching gears, staying in your station 3 portion, but if you continue to turn, you should see goal number 4, which is cultivate instructional leadership in all of our buildings. So we have 3 goals. The first one, building leadership capacity. The second one is around the school improvement planning process. And the third one is around the new evaluation and support plan that got rolled out this year. So the first one around the instructional leadership. So we provide, each year we develop a professional learning plan for our principals, assistant principals, and our coaches. You've heard us speak about this. The process remains the same, but the content or the focus shifts based on our instructional priorities. And so this year, you've heard us speak about our instructional priorities, portrait of the graduate, critical thinking, and making sure that students have access to standards-based learning experiences, and also student engagement, because we could plan the most beautiful lessons, but if we're not effectively engaging our students, then we're not going to have the impact that we want. So a couple of ways that we, through our monthly professional learning sessions and targeted supports through school visits, we measure our impact. In one way is through the learning walks, which you've heard us speak about. We conduct 3 rounds of learning walks each year. So the first one was in October, we did one in January. Our final one is scheduled in just a couple of weeks. And at that time, each school across the district is collecting data around standards-based planning and student engagement in a sample of classrooms. And so we have school leaders and district leaders working together to gather this robust data sample. And it allows us to really celebrate the good work that's happening and also to identify where do we need to provide additional supports and or learning. And so even with our expectations increasing because we want it to be fully aligned to the portrait of a graduate, we still continue to see this upward trajectory. And so you can see from October to January in both planning and engagement. And this was actually the first time our student engagement look for's went above, not only above 50%, but we got up to 62%. And so really a testament to the hard work of our school leaders and educators and the work they're doing for our kids. After looking at like how are we strengthening teacher practice, we look at student outcomes. And so students in our grades K through 10 take the NWA assessment at the beginning of the year and the middle of the year. And we look at the students who are obtaining the at or above the 61st percentile. And so you can see a real substantial gain that has occurred in math from fall to winter and a slight gain in literacy. But that slight gain is why members of actually across all 3 stations have been part of how are we prioritizing our literacy and ELA instruction and really making sure that we have a very concrete plan to strengthen that. And so we've been working with an organization called TNTP, and they have been leading us through a process of professional learning for a variety of stakeholders, teachers, coaches, school leaders, district team members, on what are the most highly effective, high quality practices based on research. Essentially, what do we want literacy and ELA instruction to look like across all of our classrooms? And so leading us through that process and also helping us to take note on what adjustments might we need to make to K-5 curricula and what resources do we need to bring into our 6 through 12 ELA classrooms. And so they're leading us through that work.
We had, the curriculum subcommittee was able to hear a little bit more about it earlier tonight, but we wanted to make sure that we shared an update on where we are with that. It's been very exciting. The teachers that we met with this morning, the 6 through 12 teachers, are very excited, very eager to provide their input into what the resources should look like for next year. And so we're excited to continue partnering with them. Two other areas where we provide leadership support is, this is the second year, we have a leadership development cohort for educators who want to be an administrator, who are not currently in an administrator role. And so we lead them through professional learning. And also they facilitate an action research project, because we don't want it just to be professional learning, but giving them an opportunity to kind of practice and hone those leadership skills. So we'll be inviting you to the culminating celebration for the cohort in May, and we hope you can join and come hear about the work that they've been doing. And lastly, what a new support for this year is supports for our early career principals. So principals who are in year 1, 2, or 3 were invited to be a part of this cohort. And Allison and I have actually been partnering with 2 of our experienced principals to develop and facilitate this cohort. So working with Dr. Lewis from PONUS and Jane Wilkins from Narragansett, it's been a really great way to support principals in their early years, but also a great opportunity for 2 of our experienced principals to lead this work with their colleagues. And so, we also look at qualitative feedback as we're thinking about what's working well and what do we need to improve. And so after all of our sessions, we gather feedback from the attendees, and you can see some quotes that we've gathered, and their rating of the professional learning continues to be, we average always above a 4.5 out of 5. So I'll hand it over to Allison.
So our second goal is centered around school improvement. So one of the things that we do with our leaders is over the summer, they engage in a deep data dive to really identify where are their areas for improvement in their schools, and then they develop a school improvement plan to address the areas of concern that come up in their school data. So they set specific goals, they identify a plan for how they're going to meet their goals. They also develop a professional development plan in terms of how they're going to support their teachers and their staff in the areas in which they're looking to grow. And as part of that, schools engage in cycles of improvement. And I'm going to hand it over to Danny Brown, who's going to talk a little bit about how she supports schools with that work.
So our cycles of improvement have really transitioned to being led in schools by school leaders. When we first started this, they were co-facilitated by our district team and the building leaders. Because we've put a lot of systems in place and strengthened a lot of our data practices, our teacher team meetings, our ILT meeting protocols, we've been able to shift ourselves out of the picture more and allow the principals and the coaches to really take ownership of what those cycles look like in their buildings as it pertains to those areas of need that come out of their school improvement. So where we've kind of first started in these very targeted kind of buckets in buildings, it's now in some cases expanded to across contents, across grades, and sometimes across the entire school at one time. And they really follow like a 6 to 10 week cycle where they are looking at practices and student outcomes as a way to determine the impact of the decisions that they're making at the building. It allows us as a support team to kind of go in and give more targeted supports in partnership with our other departments, rather than just kind of living in those really small isolated buckets as it's kind of first started in practice as we built out. So that's where we currently are, and it allows us as a district team to really get in and see the work in a more hands-on approach with our building leaders, our coaches, and our staff.
And so our next steps are really continuing to scale this practice so that it's just an authentic process that leaders and their teams engage in. And then really just thinking about, as Danny said, how are we providing very targeted supports based on their individual needs, because different schools need different things. And so we want to make sure that we're providing those supports. So our third goal is really centered around our new evaluation and support plan for leaders and educators. So last school year, our PDEC committee, which is made up of central office staff, both of the presidents from our unions, so the president of NFT, the president of NASA, as well as various constituents in the various union members who are part of that. And we collaborated and worked together to develop this evaluation and support plan. And what I would say is it really has rolled out with great success due to our collaboration in this work. We kicked it off with a 2-day summer training for our leaders on the plan. We also worked as a district team to create an orientation slide deck for leaders that they could use with their teachers. Throughout our principal meetings this year, at various meetings, we have engaged our leaders in learning around the observation process using the new rubric, best practices around mid-year conferences. So we have continued to build our leaders' capacity during those monthly meetings around the evaluation plan. Our PDEC committee meets monthly to sort of check in on how things are going, if there are adjustments that need to be made in terms of timeline. Because this is the first year we're rolling this out, we work together to do that. And, like I said, we've received a lot of positive feedback regarding the training that people received over the summer, but just in the general overall rolling out of this program. And so as we continue, we will continue to make revisions to the slide deck. Will include the additional standards that we'll be focusing on for next year, because we only started out with a limited number this year. So we'll add the additional standards for next year. And we will continue to calibrate as a PDEC committee and as a system around this new plan. And, as Mary Ann mentioned earlier, around some of the qualitative feedback that we look at, we have some feedback from our leaders around the rollout of this plan, the training that they have received, and what they have found valuable in this process.
So to end with just a couple of additional accomplishments. Last year, James Crouch was identified as new principal of the year in the state of Connecticut. We're excited that Dr. Damon Lewis was recently identified as the Connecticut Middle School Principal of the Year, and LaShante James as the Connecticut Assistant Principal of the Year. Fun fact is Dr. Damon Lewis actually hired LaShante as an AP. So it's really special for them to be honored in the same year. That's cute.
Another area of celebration is around school improvement. So as we all know, Norwalk High received a Category 4 designation. As a result of that designation, they shifted their school improvement goals to align with PSAT and SAT. They have partnered with an organization called Horizons, which gives a mock PSAT, SAT style assessment. And based on all of the work that the team has done over there, they've devised an action plan that they have put into place to embed the teaching of these skills in all of their classrooms. They've really taken a homeschool approach on this work. And we're happy to report at the mid-year that they've already exceeded their school improvement goal for this school year. And we also wanted to highlight Brian McMahon. So our 2 comprehensive high schools, Brian McMahon has exceeded their school improvement goals in ELA and math at the midpoint of the year. So we're really excited about that.
And last but not least, many of our schools over the past couple of years have been setting their equity goals to increase the access for students of color and to address the disproportionality in advanced programming.
So gifted and talented, accelerated math, honors, advanced placement. And we wanted to share a couple of data points. Gifted and talented students of color are now more than twice as likely to be identified than prior to the pandemic. Middle school accelerated math, honors enrollment, and advanced placement, we've seen both Black and Hispanic student enrollment increase either over the last year or actually over the last multiple years. And so, it's really a testament to the work that schools are setting when they set these equity goals and develop their action plans. And so that's what we have to share with you all this evening. We can transition to questions.
Well, I love the access and opportunity accomplishments there. Like, that's just amazing right there. I know there's been so much work done since I've been on the board, so much focus on it. So that's really good to see. I guess I had a couple of questions. When you were talking about school improvement plans and transitioning from like central office, kind of running those and putting that into schools, what has the impact been there? I mean, you've been seeing more adoption and more kind of acceptance of it, because I know when it's central office, it's maybe a little bit not as.
So I think you're talking about the cycles of improvement.
Yes.
Yes.
Cycles of improvement.
And so I think that there have been, and Danny, please feel free to jump in. There have been schools that have really valued this process. And what's interesting is that we had one particular school reach out recently and wanted Danny and I to just come out as a support to participate in the process with them, alongside of them. Just in terms of just facilitating the learning of the leaders further and being the thought partners in the work with them. As Danny said, there are other schools where, there's 4 or 5 cycles going on at the same time. In another elementary school, that particular principal, each member of her ILT is facilitating a cycle of improvement with a team, with a grade team. And so, schools have really embraced this process. They see the value in it and really facilitating change in their schools. And
I haven't seen a cycle run where we haven't seen improvement in either one or both of the teacher and student areas. I think kicking it back to the schools does allow for additional buy-in.
Right.
And I think that it also centers the conversations that are happening during professional development, during teacher team meetings, where the ownership relies on them. Where it's something that they are actively participating in, as a part of it all being focused on their school improvement and their goals.
Right, so they're invested in it.
So it's not something additional that's happening. It's in coherence with what the school has said. These are the things that we think are important and the goals we want to set. And now let's try to figure out the best way to get there.
Great, that's what you would hope for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then my other question was around the HR team, and just knowing, as you mentioned, that our HR department has struggled, while I've been on the board. So are we fully staffed now, would you say, in that department?
We are short one person. We'd intended to have the labor relations specialist.
Okay.
So that's the exception.
That's
the only position, because the role, the reason for having that role was to help Kimberly with some of the labor stuff. So this would be like a paralegal that can do the initial research and those types of things. And so she's now doing it all on her own. She has been working with Daniela, who is the assistant director, to do some of that stuff.
Okay.
But Daniela also assists with the generalist work as well, because she's not the lawyer, so she works at that end. So we still have some challenges just in terms of workload, and obviously now we're entering a rather busy season with budget, and they really get swamped. Summer is a busy hiring season as well, not only for summer school, but also just in general. We have peaks when we have, most resignations happen at the end of the school year, so the summer, that's when we have the highest open vacancies that are being processed. So one of the things we've talked about this year is to see what back-end help that they can get during these peak seasons so that they can focus more on getting the staff hired and going through the new hire paperwork and all of that. So some of the back-end work, like the filing and all that thing that also needs to happen, can be done either with temp help or with other individuals within the organization, administrative supporters that can come and help with that. The challenge is just confidentiality. So you're also limited in what other people can see just because of the nature of the work. So even when we have some of these either temps or assistants from other departments, they are limited in what they can do within the HR department. So that's the current challenge. We're working through it. One of the things we're doing this year differently is with the budgeting process, there's conversations about riffing and hierarchy. Last year, we started that process late. It got into the summer and created some serious challenges. We're hoping that this year we start that earlier, and there have been already conversations between HR and the unions on starting looking at lists and seniority orders. So we're trying to get ahead of it as well. So we're looking at changing how we process things within the department. Long answer to your question, we're not fully staffed. Really, 3 generalists for 2,500 employees is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Well, I have-
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good job.
Great presentation.
Going to the mayor's ball.
Yeah.
Good.
Are you? Okay. I feel we're all at the same table, right? Yay. It'll be fun.
It is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dinah's going.
Okay.
Alex. I think Sherry.
Yep, I didn't ask Miriam. Not Howard, he's away. Colin probably too, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he said he was coming in.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was wondering if he just jumped in somewhere else. I don't know. But he would have needed his like book. So we'll see. I don't know. I was wondering. What you're wearing? Gown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
I'm like in between two.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know though. I don't really want to wear either. To be honest.
How about something new?
Yeah, me too. And I don't like them. So it's like.
Oh, they're floor length?
One is.
Okay.
Yeah, one is like shorter. Yeah, like past the knee. And the other one's like ankle.
No.
Yeah. Not too long because I didn't want to have to get it hemmed.
Yeah.
Like, so I just try to stay as like kind of safe that
Right.
it wouldn't be too long, you know. Tripping over it. Don't have time to get hemmed this week is.
Either.
Right, so it's like a guy that just has to work.
It's just gotta work.
It's just gotta work.
I know, I tried mine on yesterday because I just ordered it online. I was, my husband, like, can you send me out? Like, how this fits? Zip it down it.
I know I bought one, it came Monday, don't like it. That's the one like right past the knee. And the ankle one is coming.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Fingers crossed. Is it sleeves or no sleeves or?
No sleeves.
No, so spaghetti or?
I've never crossed her.
Okay, all right.
It's like a bias.
It sounds pretty.
No.
I know the warm weather, I definitely wanted to wear black. Warm weather doesn't want, like, I feel like I don't want to anymore. I feel like I wanna go lighter.
Yeah.
With the color, but I don't know.
It's supposed to be colder though, isn't it?
Not much. I think 50.
It's inside though.
Yeah, that should be fine. I think it gets warm in there last year, right? I think.
I did not go last year. I can't remember why not.
It's like, yeah, but did you see that they opened it back up for more tickets?
No.
Yes, I think it's gonna be full. Cause I think Friday was the last day or Thursday or something. And then the city had posted, they opened back up till Monday.
Oh,
because of the demand.
Oh, wow.
So. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
I have 51.
51?
Yeah.
Good. 10-year low.
Yeah.
Spring. Tease.
Okay.
Find that perfect balance of accountability, support, setting up systems of both informal and formal check-ins and kind of what we discussed before, kind of what it really does. So different schools have different methods of that. It's really identifying that a student, first it's identifying what student baselines are, student histories are about, two different surveys and there's multiple ways to kind of determine or get an idea of what students are doing. So we're focusing on addressing those, things that were suspendable for all students a few years ago. We redeveloped that into support services, keep them in school. I think that the establishment of the OSS site has been a big part of that, to not interrupt learning. Last year, I believe we finished about 16% reduction in no assess for all students. So we create systems to again identify and then find that perfect balance of accountability and support for each.
They have 4 more minutes in the other space. Okay.
Oh, in terms of attendance, they're about even. I would say.
Leave the rest online.
Oh, okay. It's online, I guess, in the car.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Now with special ed teacher, that there to develop individual support plans with their students, can provide services that are along with compliance. So it's really just it's not just one thing. I think it's really a holistic approach to again find that balance about what each individual is, and creating multiple systems to remove that.
It's great questions. And so we, school complement.
Competency. So they're able to target their tier 1 interventions based on the needs of their classroom 3 times a year. And we have 2 evidence-based programs that our teachers have access to support that, in addition to the counselors having that. Teacher conference, I think, what is guidance specialist?
They copy. Good work. That's great.
Oh, I didn't realize there was enough room. We'll just squish it up the chickens.
Yeah, that's one, maybe I should be able to. Yeah, come over here. You come here.
I can't.
Yes.
That's like a lot of use out of it, you know?
Yeah.
What's the bottom right?
Oh, I love that. It's gonna be so pretty.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait.
This. Yep. Yep. So in this section, we have our full team here. We're going to be talking about different components. So we'll start off with curriculum, then we'll move into specialized learning. Then we will have an opportunity to talk about some of goal 5, which is our SEL and behavior work. That is a collaboration between members of the schools team and members of Sandra's team. So Ryan and Robin will talk a little bit about that work. And then we'll wrap up with goal 6, which is our family engagement and the work here at the Family Center. And so as we go through, we will So we'll start with creating critical thinkers and professional development. And then we will also move into expansion of certification courses. So we're going to start with Stacy Bergen.
Hi, good evening. So one of the main foci of this year was to really think about supporting the portrait of the graduate work in and around the competency of critical thinker. So what we did was take an inventory of what we already had built within our units of study and think about how can we tag parts of those units to really highlight some of the critical thinking that already existed within the units. So across math, ELA, and social studies, this year we were able to tag 75 experiences for teachers to highlight for kids for critical thinking. So we built upon what was already there. Then what we did was this year we had the social studies, the rollout of the new social studies standards. And we realized that inquiry was a really important part of that work that needed to happen across classrooms. So this year, the curriculum team wrote 35 inquiries across grades K through 8 in order to expose children through the inquiry design model, taking them through a task, which then resulted in some sort of call to action. And we've been able to see those lessons happen across schools. The picture that is here highlights I think it's a 2nd grade classroom where they're looking at natural disasters. And they put together a call to if there's a hurricane, like where do you go? What's your escape route plan? So that was really great to see. To support the critical thinking in science in our middle schools, we piloted a new science curriculum. And it was this idea that teachers were asking to approach science through a more inquiry model. And this new curricula that we highlighted this year gave them access to those experiences. When we think about where we are in the scope of this work here, we have completed our work as of right now, right? But the work doesn't end here. We continue to develop understanding of what a critical thinking task is. So sometimes teachers have written tasks and they think that they're asking kids to think critically, but they may almost be almost right there. And so we have to sort of norm what that really is and push the thinking for kids along the Bloom's taxonomy. So if we're going to help teachers in the moment and thinking about what that is and how they can support critical thinking, we're also going to really dive in this summer to develop additional critical thinking tasks for the 25-26 school year.
I think the only piece that I would add, and I think in the last presentation, you got to hear about our district learning walks and the positive results. And so as we've developed critical thinking tasks, we're also seeing evidence through our district learning walks and through the data centered around engagement, the growth from the beginning of the year. the year. And I think that it comes from some of the tagging of critical thinking tests in the curriculum.
And then we continue to support the development of our teachers across the district. And this year, we're really excited. At the end of April, May, we have our last session for the science of reading. So our teachers, every teacher in this district has engaged in the learning of science of reading over the past 2 years. So they have gotten this training. The school leaders have also received this training. So we are almost at the end, 2 more sessions to go. We rolled out Portrait of the Graduate training for teachers and school leaders. We provided social studies PD for grades K through 8. And we approached it from a different method in terms of we created social studies leads within each of the elementary schools. We targeted our middle schools where we had all 6th grade teachers come together, 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers to sort of roll out very content specific learning. We supported the arts through the use of Norwalk's Great Art Space. We think about our gifted and talented PD around History Day. So that was that was something that we worked on together with gifted and talented and curriculum. And this year we have 15 kids who placed on National History Day. So that's something to really celebrate. If you go into any of our classrooms, you'll see the vertical whiteboards that are up. Teachers received a lot of training starting last year around how to utilize vertical whiteboards in classrooms to promote mathematical thinking and discourse. We supported our marine science professional learning in partnership with the aquarium, thinking about how do we support our dual language teachers through the Office of the Multilingual Learners. They have a PLC that meets regularly. And then, of course, there are going to be individual needs across schools, and we support those on an as-need basis. So our status with this goal is we're in progress. And we're in progress because we have our 2 big PD days on March 13th and March 20th over the next 2 weeks. So we have to close out the year with that. But while we're closing out the school year with those days, we're also thinking about what PD do we need to do over the course of the summer to support our teachers? And then what PD do we need to have over the course of the next school year to support the next rollout of effective communicator for the Portrait of the Graduate, and then to continue to support our schools as needed.
Transition to school counseling, developmental guidance, and career pathways.
So our school counseling is engaged in the work with scholars that really speaks to scholar engagement. So the first thing I wanted to touch upon this evening was our class of 2026 post-secondary plan, or junior survey as we call it. This is the first opportunity that scholars have to come forward and really formalize their plan as to what they'd like to do after high school. What is life going to look like? They love being asked, and they love formalizing that plan because they really get to look at the categories above and say, what will bring me joy and what would make me happy, and how will I sustain myself doing so? When you take a look at our percentages, this is currently district-wide percentages that have been selected by our class of 2026. And what I'd like to point out is that for our scholars who have not yet a plan or unsure of plan, those numbers have already come down to 9% because this data is fluid. This data continues to the end of the school year, so those numbers will come down, more plans will be formalized and selected, and we'll see other numbers rise. Another way in which we engage our scholars is through our developmental guidance curriculum, and we do so in a few different grade levels. Kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade is where workforce development is embedded in a tier 1 push-in system for all scholars. And, it's really exciting because they're getting workforce at such a young age. So it's above and beyond identifying someone in that uniform. It is really systematically tied to our state standards of workforce development. And most importantly, it's written by school counselors. So it's written by school counselors and delivered by school counselors. We're also doing the same in 6th and 7th grade. However, in 6th and 7th grade this year, it is for social emotional learning. So K1 and 2 is workforce development, and 6 and 7 is social emotional learning in the same systematized way. Then when we take a look at our career pathways, as of our 3 years ago, really our scholars have been engaging in career pathways in grades 6 to 12. So all 9 of our schools where our scholars have selected those pathways, again, speaking to student voice and choice, and also speaking to engagement. The engagement helps scholars with their attendance. It helps them have a real sense of purpose in their programming and their classes. And it really helps that engagement piece. And I think one of the important pieces is using that data to tie in school and outside school experiences. And so having that entrepreneurial business person come to, for example, the middle school or the high school, and having our business pathway scholars come down to experience that is really exciting because it's very targeted. You'll see that this is in progress, and that's because this programming begins in August and it goes all the way till June. So it's always ever changing, which is really exciting as well. Next, I wanted to speak about our workforce development opportunities that are happening in the district as well. And one of the exciting things that we are doing in expanding our workforce development programming is bringing in partnerships that we've been able to secure with wonderful, wonderful partners that work with us and will help us create different programming outside of our school. What that does is it allows for our scholars, for example, for the Pathways to Construction Trades course, is to take a course that happens on a Saturdays and has a rotating trades exposure piece to it. So this particular course was created for juniors and seniors, and it's an application opportunity. And we've had many scholars apply to that, and they started last Saturday. And so they're going to rotate in and out of these different particular trades. We have wholesale lumberyard, we have electrician, plumbing, HVAC, audio, video, flooring is a new one that we've introduced. And this is just to name a few of the 12 that are checkpoints or points of trades, that are offered in this particular course. So that's really exciting. One of the added values of these courses is for this particular course, it's going to provide mentorship opportunities within the class, and it's going to provide scholars getting apprenticeships when they start to partner with and network with the different tradespeople that come in and work in their classes. So it's also networking as well. I'm going to move to the right to our high school patient care technician program. That is a program that is run by Nuvance Health, and we partner with them on that. So offering our senior scholars the opportunity to come in at the ground level of a really increasing trajectory of a healthcare field, starting as a patient care technician. And one of the values of this particular class is not only do they receive the free training as they do in the course to the left also for the trades, because it is paid for by our partners, they also receive in the patient care technician course job placement. When they finish the course, when they receive their training, they're going into job placements with Nuvance Health. So there's some real advantages to modeling our workforce development in this particular way with our various partners. And I just wanted to also touch upon our Connecticut state certification courses. We started that programming back in fall of 23. And since then, we've registered 128 scholars to date, which is really exciting. They're able to take different courses such as security, such as phlebotomy, Google IT, Amazon Web Services, just to name a few. And they take these and are able to get stackable credentials for their resumes that really set them off to their future prior to them receiving their diploma. One thing I wanted to share also is that we were looking to have 100 scholars to date. We were able to surpass that at 128. So we're so very excited about that. And we've offered 17 courses, in 10 career clusters. So a real diversity of course offerings to speak to student engagement. This you'll see is marked as completed. However, this work continues year round. It doesn't take the summer off. It continues. There are classes formed during the summer. And for those of y'all who get my emails and postings, you know that during the summer, I'm sending those out as well.
And I think one piece to add is last year we offered 8 courses, and this year we've more than doubled to 17 courses. So I think it's an important piece. I think that adding those extra courses are what what is attracting students to gain credentials.
Awesome.
So now we're going to move into specialized learning. And there's a couple different goals tied to specialized learning. One is around teacher retention. One is around the development of programs. One is around parent input. And so it'll be 4 different pieces that we'll touch on, and then a 5th one when we celebrate some of our goals. So
So as Rob mentioned, we have 4 buckets. The first one is employee retention. We've had a lot of new staff come in over the last 2 years, either new to Norwalk or new to teaching altogether. And we really wanted to make sure that they felt the support that you really need to have as a new teacher, not only in the gen ed environment, but also in that special education environment. So we developed the New Teacher Academy, which between September and January, we were able to serve each month somewhere between 32 and 39 teachers. You'll notice February, the number is much smaller. We pressed pause on what we were doing because we had hired 11 new teachers between December and January to fill some vacancies, and they had none of this training. So we wanted to really focus on giving them, kind of catching them up and giving them that CT SEDS training so that they could join their colleagues and be ready to push forward for second semester. Rob actually shared a story that there was a teacher who saw him and said that she was sad that she didn't get to go in February because she'd been going the other 4 months and was disappointed that she didn't come to the one in February. But we're going to bring everybody back in March. The end of this month, we're going to do IEP compliance. And then in April, we're going to do an Orton Gillingham Linda Mood Bell reading training. And then in May, we're going to look at implementing extended school year services over the summer and what that looks like, and then also begin supporting them in planning for next year based on IEP goals and objectives that have been established for their students. As far as parent survey data, the QR code up in the top corner there is actually the QR code that leads to our parent survey based on PPT experiences. So that QR code goes out with the notice for a PPT meeting. It's also in every PPT room in all the schools in the district in their conference room in a placard on the table. And then it also goes out with the IEPs when they're sent to the parents after the meeting. And we really do encourage the parents to give us their feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We really want to know what their experiences have been like. So far, 98% of the families who have responded have shared favorable responses. 2% have shared some unfavorable feedback, but in each of those instances, it was actionable feedback that we were able to follow up with them on and try to make corrections where necessary as far as wherever their concerns were. There were some parents who did note that they did not have access to CT SEDS, and that's another piece of very actionable feedback for us because we can then go in, get them connected, and troubleshoot wherever their issue is about getting into their child's portal with all of that information. So we're really excited that we've got such favorable responses and that the parents are interested in being part of all of that. And then as far as program development, last year, there were six or seven students in 5th grade that the special education administrators had been tracking, and they were very concerned that there might not be programming available to them when they got to the middle school that would really support their very individualized needs of personal self-care, functional academics, functional communication skills. So Deirdre worked with Nathan Hale Middle School and developed what we call the Triumph program. And we were able to actually keep all of those students in district for their middle school, for their beginning of their middle school years. And we have consultants that come in from outside providers. They also get weekly community experiences, which are the 2 photos that are up there. Angelfish is a swimming program that we take the students to. And then they also, everybody's favorite grocery store, they get to go to Stu Leonard's and learn some shopping and some nutrition skills there. And the Triumph program connects really nicely to our STARS program and then to our practical skills and transition programs at the high school and beyond. So these are students who will really be able to continue on in this pathway of getting these functional academic skills that they need in the district as opposed to having to be placed out. And then finally, our assessment team, we wanted to form an evaluation team to evaluate students primarily in NECC, where there's a really large influx of students who need to be evaluated at that age. So we put together a team comprised of a special ed teacher, a speech language pathologist, an occupational therapist, and a school psychologist. Sorry, I may have said that twice, but anyway, so it's the evaluation team. And at the beginning of the year, we saw some really nice movement with those numbers of students that we were able to evaluate quickly, efficiently, and move forward with IEPs where it was necessary. Unfortunately, our special education teacher did get a job as an administrator in New York. We're very happy for them, very sad for us because we lost one member of our team. And then we did also lose a school psychologist who moved to another district. So we are in the process of putting that team back together again, but we do have some nice information from the beginning of the year that showed really good progress as far as getting those evaluations done in a timely manner. So we are looking forward to filling that again.
I think the only other piece when we talk about program development is that we're constantly looking at the needs of the district to see where we can continue to grow and develop new programs to support our students in district. So additional accomplishments, and I'm sure you've had an opportunity to hear a little bit about our K-12 literacy vision that has been developed and is really guiding our work forward as an organization as we look 6 through 12 to bring in a new curriculum and in K through 5 to refine the work that we have already. For specialized learning, I think they've developed a special education advisory group. And one of the highlights, they had their first meeting last week. And I thought we would see a handful of families. We had over 20 families that showed up to that meeting, and they're very excited to be partners. Share things that are going well in areas that we can improve upon. And so having that partnership is going to be wonderful. Another accomplishment we talked about is our Norwalk Helps, our mental, like our resource that is shared for the community. And it has been celebrated in many forums around many places in the state as a document that others should try and build for their community because it's such a resource for administrators, teachers, parents, you name it, it's a resource that can be leveraged and used to support families. Another success from our MLL team is the Lost Links training. So every year our multilingual learners have to take the Lost Links exam, which is a language proficiency assessment. And it's a test that there's a large window from January until March. And so the team really worked with administrators around what is the assessment, how are we best supporting students to be prepared for that assessment, and then helping to create an assessment timeline, because if the multilingual learner teachers who assess the students, if they're assessing, then they are not working with children in core instruction. So how can we take that 2-month window and provide it in a shorter window so we can get back to supporting with core instruction? And so Frances and her team worked with many schools around professional development, building out assessment schedules, and really just being a key lever of support for the schools. We talked about our STEM accomplishments, about our open SciEd work in science, about our vertical whiteboards in math, and really looking at the marine science pathway enhancements. We visited at one point this year to Brian McMahon and West Rocks and Jefferson. And so we've done a lot of enhancements in that work. And Stacy already talked a lot about the social studies work that we have really refined social studies as an organization. We're going to transition to Goal 5. And for this section, it's going to be Robin and Ryan.
Okay, so in order to, a lot of this, it says in progress, but a lot of this stuff has been completed already. In order to look at implementing the MTSS, we really needed a district system, a district team to be developed to support the work throughout all the schools. So that was the first step where the vision was created and then enforced throughout the process. What we had noted was that we have really good data on academic, but not necessarily on behavioral issues. So we implemented a DESA screener, which looks at student strengths. In K-5, it was an educator's report. In 6, 7, and 8, it was a student self-report. We were able to also pilot at CGS. They had contacted me with some needs around like Tier 1 and what can they do for their kids. So we piloted it there. And we've also been able to give it to the Norwalk High social workers to help monitor their caseloads and keep data on that. So now that we had a system that was looking at assessing students' behavior, social, emotional, and behavioral health, we needed to talk about like how can we look at the whole child together. So our dashboard, our data dashboard does have information where you can look at your DIVL scores, you can look at attendance, and you can look at their DESA scores all within the same. So we're really getting a good snapshot of a child. So as this was rolled out, administrators, school teams, mental health staff were all talked to and discussed around the DESA system and tiered support and what their roles would be within that so that the rollout was supported. We also were able to give evidence-based curriculums to support the work for tier 1 and tier 2 for our counselors. We also met with improvement teachers to talk about how we're looking at a whole child versus just the academic data. So that way everyone in the school really is looking at comprehensively looking at the child. Where we still, so all of those things have been completed. Where we're still in progress is working with the model. So we're working specifically with the state to create an MTSS system that is supported for Norwalk's needs specifically. So IT is working with us as well to implement the system. So that way it's an easier process to put in when we're looking at how we're tracking this and progress monitoring. In addition to that, Ryan and I have done some work around the code of conduct and being really intentional in terms of putting restorative practices along with the code of conduct. So that way we're not just giving consequences, we're also providing some social behavioral supports around how to make more positive decisions moving forward.
So this next slide is just highlights a lot of our successes. And before we jump into that, I think that the numbers that are reflective here are a really good indication of the culmination of rather than approaching it as correcting behavior, it's really human development. And I think that whether it's our workforce programs, whether it's our workshops, our screeners, our surveys, is really focusing on the human and the student as a whole. So I think that these numbers are really an indication of not just one or two things, but really a district-wide approach to address the whole student and their families in some situations as well. As a district last year, we finished up with a 10% reduction in total suspensions from the year prior. Right now we're on, when this was done, we're just under 12%. The early numbers from March indicate there'll probably be about a 15% reduction in total suspensions by the end of the month. So really we started that momentum last year and it carried over to this year. Some of the major highlights are West Rocks and their 46% decrease. And I think that again is really a culmination of their adoption of the ruler method and really implementing and being intentional to create multiple layers of informal check-ins, formal check-ins, social emotional health, and so forth, from both a student perspective as well as a staff and administrative perspective. And it's really evident that when a school jumps in with both feet, these changes could happen rapidly. So, really a credit to the entire team over there. And then McMahon is down 25% overall compared to last year. Again, not necessarily because of the ruler, but for the same mindset of really approaching this as human development rather than behavior correction.
So then just going back to how are we doing this all? It really takes collaboration from our school people and employees, and then also from our community. So we've really tapped into that to help build out our MTSS system. We do have, I know we've talked about the community partnerships we have. We also have community partnerships around if there was an untimely death, around crisis. But then we work with our community partners now for all of our trainings to put them together. So we did all of our risk assessment training together. We have a makeup for risk assessment on Thursday, and all of the clinicians from the mental health agencies have also been invited to that. And they found that really helpful to working in tandem with one another. We have also done some really good work with Mid-Fairfield Community Care in terms of supporting staff, providing de-escalation techniques and trainings with them, but also providing staff with their own grounding techniques to support staff wellness. So that way we can make sure that we are taking care of our staff as well as our students. In addition to that, Mid-Fairfield Community Care has been really pivotal in our kids who are looking at a high risk for concerning behaviors. So Ryan will contact me and we're able to contact them and get them in for services immediately. So that way we're providing intervention for our kids that are most at risk. We also have community partnerships where we went out and gave a survey to our families about what kinds of information would they like, what would they need. So we have monthly parent chats in English and Spanish targeting what they asked for. And then Ryan and I have been working with Margaret Watt, who you guys met for the Norwalk Youth Survey, to come up with, in addition to code of conduct, but restorative practices or education supports around substance use. So looking at if a student has a one-time offense versus psychoeducation, bringing in a program to support that psychoeducation for them. If it's a second or another offense, we have contacted our school-based clinicians to go through a training called Smart Recovery. So that way our students that are repeat offenders can then get some support group substance abuse targeted work. And then tier 3, we would look at going into JRB. So we've been able to do some good work there.
This next slide is I think a really good indicator of the holistic approach, creating multiple layers of early identification and more importantly, early intervention. So we did see the reduction in chronic absenteeism. That's a complete indicator of we're identifying issues that are preventing kids from going to school. And also I think a big part of that is kids are feel more connected to the school, right? So not all school kids have that connection through the avenue of academics. There's other ways to do it. I think that we're addressing those and creating opportunities for them to feel connected to school. Again, in addition to identifying and intervening early before it gets out of hand.
And then our last section is goal 6 around family engagement. And I think it's important to note that our goal last year really centered around offering more workshops to families. It was, how are we going to engage families in more opportunities, more workshops? And this year we really wanted to target to increase participation in those workshops because we saw variance. We saw one workshop, we would have 20 parents show up, and then we'd have a second workshop and we'd have 2. And so that tells me that that second workshop wasn't one that really called to parents. And so Francis and the team here developed a survey to put out to families to see what they would be interested in, and then started to develop from there. So Francis, I'll turn it over to you.
So we were very strategic this year in terms of the offerings, like Rob had stated. Through our survey, we identified what's most important to families and what were their interests. And instead of offering tons of workshop, what we did as a team was collaborate with central staff lead departments where we offer some of those workshops that parents were asking. So for example, some of the workshop offerings that we had a high number of members of the community was in a special ed workshop about the special ed process. What offerings do they have, different programs. Carol joined in on a workshop about the workforce development, the opportunities and the trainings that are available to families and to the scholars. Kimberly shared the portrait of a graduate with families, our focus on critical thinking, so that families were well informed about the portrait of a graduate during that workshop. One of the most successful workshops we had this year was, I believe, one of employees from MPS reached out to Dr. Estrella about wanting a Spanish class, and we were able to have 40 people register for the Spanish class. We had to split it in half. The bulk of them were for MPS employees and community members. We even actually had someone reached out to us to extend 5 sessions. So that was a very successful class. One of the reflection piece that we did at the end of the class, one employee mentioned the fact that through this class, she was able to communicate a lot better with families at the school. So that was very good. Our back to school backpack drive was very successful. We had 425 family members come in that day. 425 students walked out with a backpack full of supplies and ready for school. Recently, we had an attorney, Marcel Zuko, who presented to families about the new immigration laws. It was very successful online. We had a total of 88 participants and about 10 families at the event. It was hybrid. We've a holiday toy drive was very successful this year. Our numbers went up compared to last year. We had 109 employees from MPS honor students with a gift. They have to write a list of what they want for Christmas. So we do a read aloud with Dr. Estrella here. and it was a very nice event. A big celebration, like we know the family center is the hub, the heart of Norwalk community. I myself saw the family center grow to a wraparound service in all types of services. Now, as of January 27, we're celebrating the opening of the third student-based health center, the Wellness Center at the Family Center. What's so special about this center is that we provide service for MPS students and their families. So we're very happy with the outcome for the past 3 years of how we're really providing wraparound service to the whole child, like Brian was saying about, we really want our students to be successful. We really have to meet their needs in terms of in a holistic approach. Thank you.
So that is our presentation. And if you have questions, I mean, we covered a lot of information on a lot of different topics. But if there's something that has called out to you as a question or a wondering, we have everyone here. I think it's a great time. The gang's all here.
So I had some questions, on the behavioral incidents that resulted in suspension and expulsion. So it's amazing, you know, how these numbers have decreased, but when I see the number 676 behavioral incidents, how do we compare to like other similar districts? Like, is that normal in a district our size?
Yeah, so each individual codes vary from city to city, but that's in line relatively with other districts.
It's a lot of altercations in a given school day.
So not all of those are altercations. The altercations right now are our number one reason for suspension. But when we talk about 12,000 kids and of course different campuses, it's not so much. But we have seen a reduction. I know Ms. Feo spoke at the last board meeting about the state publishes 2 codes. When it comes to fighting, there's up to 5 codes that could be considered for each one. The 2 that are published by the state, we are up in. But if you take into account all 5 of those codes, we have seen a decrease.
Right, so we're kind of in the norm.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that is higher than across the state is the likelihood that one of our Black students will get into a fight. That is high right now. Some of our screening and survey data says that those particular students aren't feeling quite connected to the school for whatever reason right now. So that's something that we're working to address and build those opportunities and avenues for connection to the school.
All right. Then I had a question about the workplace development opportunities. And Carol, like I remember when you started this whole group and you left us as my son's counselor, and it's okay.
Still here, still here.
I know. But the pathways to construction trades, the 17 courses. So where are those being held? Like, are these like hands-on trainings that these kids are like getting their hands on these trades?
Yes, so the Pathways to Construction Trades is a Saturday class that's happening at a facility or a location in Norwalk. We wanted to keep it local so that we would have less barriers to access. And so, yes, they are getting their hands on trade tools, and depending on whatever that course is for that particular Saturday, they are getting exposure, which is really exciting. When it comes to the 17 courses, those are offered at CT State Norwalk. And so those are on-campus courses, or they're online, or they're a blend of 2. Some of them, for example, might be like a full-day course. We have a full-day course offered where a scholar can go in and have a security guard training, and after a full day, be licensed to be a security guard when you're 18 and older in the state of Connecticut.
Wow, that's really cool.
One thing I think I would add is if you look at what students are interested in based on the junior survey, we have 8% of our current juniors who are interested in trade or technical school.
Right.
And so I think it's important that as an organization, we're providing opportunities for students to experience, to know what they want to do and what they want to do post graduation.
Right.
And that increases attendance,
Yeah.
engagement in school,
Exactly.
and so on and so forth.
And our school counselors just did a data update relative to that, and we're now at 10% to your point for the trade and technical. I think it'll be higher by the time we're ready for graduation.
Okay, I had another question for you. On the school counseling, development guidance and career pathways, so can you just explain, so with the K through 2 receiving developmental guidance lessons in workforce, and then the 6th and 7th graders getting developmental guidance lessons in social emotional learning, and then the 12 career pathways. Are these programs like in our pathway schools only, or are they pathway schools and also in non-pathway schools, or like how are these guidance and career pathways programs kind of in our schools?
So that's a great question. So I will tell you that for K1 and 2, our developmental guidance push-in, our school counselors will go into classrooms every single month since the beginning of school to end of school. And that happens in K1 and 2, irrespective of whatever school that the scholars in or school choice, and that's for workforce development. We have the same on the other side for social emotional learning for 6th and 7th grade, irrespective of one of the 5 middle schools, it is all 5 middle schools. What I will tell you is when we think about our career pathways, and one way I really like to talk about it is that school choice, for example, is the restaurant your family may choose to go to. But when you get to that restaurant and you get that menu, that is your career pathway choices. So I will tell you that from grade 6 to 12 in our 9 schools in total, all of our scholars are engaged in career pathways based on the menu offering in that particular school once they either move to a feeder school or once they move through school choice.
Okay. So then the 6474 scholars in grades 6 through 12 who are in career pathways, they are in a pathway school.
They have, yes, they've selected their career pathway. Once they've gotten to the school, they've gotten their menu and they've made their choice. So for example, let's say a scholar decides to go to Norwalk High School, whether they come in as a feeder school or whether they come in through the DMCA, the Digital Media Academy, they are going to choose when they get to the school their career pathway. Now, I would suspect that scholar coming in for DMCA is going to choose DMCA as their pathway, but other scholars who maybe come in the school, they have 18 career pathways that they choose from at Norwalk High alone, and that's based on the school's course catalog. So every single one of our 9 schools in grades 6 to 12 has a unique course catalog, and that's how the career pathways were built. They were built based on the class offerings and how they fit into the 16 national career clusters.
Okay.
So it's different than our choice offerings.
I guess that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
confused
our
with.
K-12 pathway, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's because it is a nationally recognized program and they call them
Right.
these career pathways.
Okay.
But it's something different, so to speak.
Embedded
So
in the schools.
all of our students in grades 6 through 12 will pick something of interest, and then that could be part of the electives that they
Okay.
choose in their school.
Okay.
So it's just,
So
but
it's
it's
all
different
K6
than
through
our
12
school
are picking a
choice
career pathway.
pathways. And I
Okay.
think that that's where
Yeah,
the
choice
confusion
in that
is that
where
you're
it is.
thinking of,
Okay.
well, marine science
Right.
is
Right.
a school choice pathway, but this is something that is
A
the
career.
career clusters looking, and so when the student is in middle school,
Right.
they're not necessarily choosing IB because
Yeah.
they're part of their goal,
Right.
but they're looking at the course offerings that they have, and they're gonna select one of the career cluster pathways. And then there's courses that are in that pathway that they can take for electives and that they could take in their school. So like if Brian McMahon, their different career pathways are different than Norwalk High, depending on the courses that they offer.
Okay. Kind of like picking a major.
Kind of like, I would say it's kind of
Searching a major.
The focus.
Right.
It's kind of focused on really picking a focus. It's not, you don't have to, like, if I say I'm really interested in art, there's gonna be some like foundations of art would be a course.
Right, but then there's still requirements
cluster,
like in the art
And there
pathway.
are other
Yeah.
pieces that they could take,
Right.
but that could be of interest to them if they select art, but they're not bound to it. So
Right.
there's still flexibility. I'm not really interested in taking pottery.
Yeah.
So I might wanna take this other electives, but it really is to help guide the student to say, if I'm choosing this as an opportunity, that may be of interest to me. If they have an artist come to talk to the school,
Right, I'm getting.
then that might be a student they wanna tap to talk to this artist because they selected art in their career.
Okay.
I just wanted to provide that.
No, that's helpful.
How were you?
I was getting confused with
When we
the
started,
voice.
when we
Yeah.
started this work,
Yeah,
it was something that was brought up in different venues at
Right.
different points.
And one of the things I can share with you is our program of study, in which you'll see for each school listed the career pathways, and that will make a lot of sense. If you go to Red Middle School, you can choose a wellness pathway, global citizenship, just based on their courses.
right.
Okay. I have two quick questions.
Great.
Still on this topic. So it was a junior class that was surveyed.
Yes.
Can you like explain why the junior, and do we survey any other grade levels?
That's a great question. So we survey both the junior and senior classes. And what we do is the school counselors start with the juniors to really formalize those ideas for post-secondary, and then that follows them into senior year. It provides that formalization of thought where the scholar's ready to really move in some different directions based on that planning. But then it also allows for staff, junior and senior year, for the school counselors to support them in the best way possible based on that planning. So currently, juniors and seniors are surveyed in this way with the same survey.
Okay, so we're not asking like freshmen what they're thinking?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think they wanna come in. So the health center. How's that doing? Like, what has it been like, do you know how it's been received? And is there any like MPS employees there, or is it only the community health center?
It's only the community
That
health
work there,
center.
okay.
But they are setting up appointments, so it's by appointment based right now, and it's doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah, and families are very happy.
And we have access to that data, like we'll be able to know.
I could get access to that
We
data.
have data sharing agreements.
Share agreements, yeah, okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, team.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Good night, thank you.
Which way you go?
This is right now. I know.
No, that's all. I don't put it. I guess.
Sometimes he was on his way, but. So I have to. Okay, he said he was on his way, I don't know what happened. I wasn't using it online.
Yeah, I thought maybe he jumped in.
Yeah. Okay, that's what he said, but. We can put it down. Push it. Waiting for me. I'm slow mo. That's good. So that's.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I know we had a lot of information this evening. A lot to discuss and think about. Next item on the agenda is public comments. I didn't have anybody signed up for public comments. No one online either. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to make a change on the agenda. I'd like to have a motion for executive session to discuss mid-year goals. with Dr. Estrella and Sandra Fayoulis.
Want it executive
Yes, so
motion.
motion approved by Sherry, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No, yes, maybe. Okay. So we have Tom's not here. So 7 yes, 1 no's, and 1 not here. So we're gonna take some time to go into executive session for further discussion.
We'll go into
Back room? All right, welcome everyone. We are back. I just wanted to thank everybody. This has been a late night, lots of information, lots of discussions. And before we adjourn, is there anyone that wants to make a comment for this evening?
Oh, just great presentations. Thank you for all the work that the team is doing. It's great that we can see the updates and
I agree with that.
Agreed.
Agree.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for everything this evening. And with that being said, motion to adjourn. Okay, seconded by Jasmine. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.